Hello and welcome back to Class Evolution. Today we're going to be covering a comical class, the Bard. Now, the Bard for a very long time has been considered a sucky class. And for a very long time it was. In 2nd edition, the Bard, it had very limited spell access, very limited weapon access, very limited combat capability, because it was an offshoot. It was the same grouping category as the Rogue, which was originally built to be a skill-oriented class. So the Bard was kind of really just shit out of luck. Its buff required, I believe it was 5 minutes of playing before the buff was instilled. And you couldn't do it in combat, so you had to do it beforehand. So, right there, the Bard has lost a lot of its ability to be combat effective. And I had a player play a Bard. He unwittingly picked one, and ended up dying shortly thereafter. So the Bard in 2nd edition wasn't very useful. I mean, it had some cool support. I mean, for a story character, a Bard was an awesome choice. I loved the Bard as a story option, but in a real game scenario, your Bard had a higher chance of dying every session than any other class out there. You might just die from a peasant. So, they lost a lot of their player base due to that. But they had some cool support. Like I said, in the 2nd edition books to complete Bard, you had a lot of story, you had a lot of options. I mean, fairly interesting core class except for its actual playability. Then we moved into 3.5 and 3rd edition. Well, we'll break those two up. In 3rd edition, the Bard really had nothing to do. It really hadn't evolved too much. And the support for it wasn't very good yet again. I mean, I didn't spend too much time. I read through Song and Silence once or twice, and the Bard in 3rd edition, but it had its own spell list. It had now finally broken away from the Rogue, and now had its own spell list. Very limited. They're actually the only arcane class that could also cast healing magic, mind you. Their buff also became something they could do in combat. Not very well, though. And their prestige classes really sucked in 3rd edition. We moved into 3.5. They got more stuff. They upped their ability to use armor outside from the rogues. They could now wear, I believe it was up to chainmail or chain shirt, one of the two. And that gave them a little bit more survivability. I believe they upped their weapon categories as well, what they could use. And they upped their buffs to make them more versatile. But still the Bard lacked. The prestige classes were alright. There was one really cool one, though, in the book Libris Mortis, which was a Singer of the Dead, I believe it was. It was a necromantic bard, and it was actually a really cool story and combat capabilities. I was a big fan of the Dead Singer. But the Bard was still a Bard. It was a jack of all trades. Could do everything, but mastered none. Until 4E rolled in. And for the first time ever, the base Bard class did not suck. The Bard was actually a cool class to play. You could actually do things. Your inspiring presence was still there. Your ability to heal was still there. I mean, you could now, instead of draw fire on yourself, you had the ability to bounce your spells off of your allies so that they would draw fire. You could, if you rolled a proper check, so you could make your enemy believe that your fighter was shooting spells out of his fingers and swinging his sword violently around, lopping off minions' heads and slaying all kinds of creatures. So the Bard all of a sudden had a lot more survivability and a lot more abilities to do in combat. And made more so by the support that they got, which was actually really cool. They got some really cool Paragon pads and Epic Destinies and just power choices in general. So I was really happy when I saw the Bard. Like, I heard the Bard was going to be in a book, and I was like, oh great, let's see if they can make it not suck this time. And they actually did. The first time I actually played with a bard in a 4E game, I was playing with a guy who refused to do anything other than rhyme if he was in character. So, he'd attack, he'd have to say some little rhyme for himself. So it made for a very, very good introduction to the 4E bard to play with someone like that who felt the need to rhyme. So the support for the bard was good. And now we're actually seeing, up on November 15th, I believe it is, the new Here's to the Feywild book comes out for 4E, which will have a new subclass for the bard called the Skald, which is a historian and poet based in, I believe, Irish culture, Gaelic culture. So that'll be interesting to see. But the bard in 4E the bard has come a long way from really sucking to sucking a little bit less to actually not sucking at all. So if I had to pick, obviously I'd have to pick the 4E bard if I was going to play one. But until next time, have a good one.